Om Namah Shivaya. Welcome back to In the Khud. In this video, we're going to make the box that we made in yesterday's video. We're going to firstly open that box by using armature system. And I'm going to show one problem that you're going to run into when using the armature system. If you're trying to open the box like this, every single time the box seems to open from inside. The third thing we're going to see is how you can set up a particle system like this and then play around with your particle settings. Finally, one more thing we're going to learn is how you can add a little bit of wiggle like you do wiggle in After Effects right inside Blender, and also blend it in and blend it out. This is where I left yesterday's video where we took a 2D image and converted it into a 3D scene. If I was to take my camera now and move it, so the camera is in the render collection side camera, your animation camera, and move it, you see this is where we left last time. The first thing that I wanted to cover here is how can you make that box open up like a flap. And there is a YouTube video that I saw for this exact tutorial. I'm going to link that in the description for credit, but I'm going to quickly show you my process of making that happen. I'm gonna actually solo this box with slash. So this is your box. Come into edit mode. The top face you're gonna X and say faces. So that's gone. Now the idea behind making a box open and close is like all these four edges that you see, you want to extrude them out and then bring them in. But for that to happen, if you have like a standard cube which is 2 meter, 2 meter, 2 meter, then you just extrude it in every direction by 1 meter and call it a day. But you see this box is not like a standard box. So firstly we need to see how long each of these edges are. So you want to come in here in your overlays panel and check edge length. Okay, now if you have an edge selected, you're going to see the length displayed here, so 2.93 meters. Now when you select all of these edges, you're going to see the edge length. Okay, now I want to extrude this out, but for this extruding this edge out, you need to see the edge here, so that's 2.03 meters. So let's say that's 2 meters. We're going to extrude it with EY, and we're going to extrude in this direction by 1. So I'm going to press 1 and press negative or minus on your keyboard, and that will go out here. Same thing has to be done here, so EY1. So I'll go here in the right direction. For this, I want to check how long is this thing here. So that's 2.93 meters. Let's round it up to 3 meters. So I'm going to extrude this in X by 1.5. Again, it's going in the wrong direction, so press minus and EX 1.5. Okay. So now we want to add an armature system like with bones and everything so that this actually works like we wanted to work. For that, I'm going to try and get my origin right at the center of the base here. This is not exactly necessary, but it'll be a good thing to do. So I'm going to come into edit mode, and with Control R, it's actually going through here. So what we can do is, if you want to just have a loop here, I can select this with face selection. I'm going to press Y. So then this face will be ripped. That's the shortcut for rip. Now if I do Control R, it will only affect this. So I'm going to add one loop here, right click, and add one loop here, right click. So now this point here is going to be my absolute center. I'm going to say Shift S cursor to select it. So the cursor comes here, and then with this we can say right click, set origin to 3D cursor. So the origin is also there and the 3D cursor is also there. Why do we do all of that? Now I'm going to come into Shift A armature and add a single bone which will be added right here. So I'm going to go into my left view, and we can go into the wireframe view to see what's happening. With this bone selected, I'm going to go into the edit mode, and with this top part selected, I'm going to bring it up till here. Okay, because this is going to be like the body, the main control for everything. I want to go into like normal selection first. Now we want to extrude it in these directions, these 4 directions that we've extruded the face. With this selection, we say E, Y, and in this direction was 1. So 1, and then we're going to say minus. So it comes in here. Now the problem is it's coming from here to here, but I want to come from this edge to this edge. So with this bone selected, what we're going to do is Alt P and disconnect bone. Okay, now I can select this bone and say GY1 in the negative direction. So now it will snap to the point where this should be closing, like the flap should be closing. And select this bone and say Shift D, right click to place where it should be. And now with your pivot, we're going to go to 3D cursor, which is coming by your comma. Hold down comma on your keyboard, RZ 180. So because the 3D cursor is right here in the center of the box, it's going to flip exactly like how we need it to be. So we're going to come in here and extrude one more bone in this direction. So EX, and this was 3 meters, remember, so 1.5, and let's go in the negative direction. Again, the same process, Alt P, disconnect, and this we're going to say GX 1.5 negative direction. So this comes exactly where it should be. Now I say shift D, RZ 180. Now I can get my 3D cursor back to active element or individual origins. It's more or less the same, and we can go into the solid view. So this is what we've gotten so far. Now how do we go about connecting this to the armature? Firstly, let's go about renaming the bones here so it's easier for us to do, like, understand what we're doing. Naming convention doesn't really matter, but I'm gonna come here and say F2 front, and I select this, say F2 back, select this F2 left, and this bone F2 right, and we're gonna select this and say body. Now we're gonna select the box, then shift select the armature, Control P, set parent to object with empty groups. What this is gonna do is on your box, in your object data properties, you're going to get all these vertex groups now you can assign to the armature. With the box, go into the edit mode. With face select this part, and what was this, the front? So I'm going to select front and hit assign. This was back, so we're going to select back and hit assign. This was left assign. This was right assign. Now I'm going to select all of these faces and do a Control I, so everything but these faces is selected, and we're going to select the body and hit assign. Now you can quickly come in here and hit select, so we'll see if the right faces have been assigned or not. Left, front and back. What we've done is we've basically rigged this box to this armature. So if with this armature I was to go into the pose mode, select this and say R. If you're not sure which direction to go in, what you can do is spacebar and R, so that gives you a rotate tool. And spacebar won't be there by default. You want to come into preferences, inside key map, select mouse with left button, you say spacebar action tools. By default it's at play. I find this to be more useful. So you see that this direction is what you want to go in, RZ 180 in the negative. So now you see that this box is completely folding in. Similarly, you want to come here, and if you don't want to type values, you can just drag it in here and hold control, so it snaps. If you see at the top there, it is snapping to negative 180. Now with this bone, I'm going to say bring it here to negative 180. With this bone, bring it here to negative 180. You can't just directly move the box now, because then this kind of weirdity will start to happen because we have an armature in place. You can just move the armature around and the box will follow it, but I think a better way to do it is come in here and say shift A, add an empty sphere. Okay, we're going to call this sphere box control. The armature is controlling the box, so shift select with the empty and say Control P to object. If you move the object, the armature moves with it, and also the box moves with it. Now the next step of operation is we want to take this box up, move it a little bit, and then drop it, and we have those coins falling in. Firstly, unisolate things. Okay, we're going to start from here. So in my timeline, press home to zoom into the timeline. Yeah, that was a dope sheet. So in your keying here, I'm going to add a keying set. By default it's going to be like this, so come in here and say add location rotation. The advantage of doing this, setting a keying set, is like if you come in here and just press I, it will automatically add location and rotation keyframes for you. You don't have to come in here and say I and then the drop down location rotation, whatever. Okay, so I'm going to start from here with the plane selected. I'm going to say I, so that gives location rotation, and I'm going to go 30 frames ahead. I'm going to bring the box up. I'll bring the box here, and we can also take the box behind, so somewhere like this. Again, it's important to press I, otherwise you can have your auto keying on if you don't want to keep doing that. So by the time this comes here, and the way I like to work is I have discrete keyframes for everything that I want, and if I want to overlap those actions, I can do that later. Let me open the box first. So I'm going to go into my pose mode with all these bones selected. I'm going to say I. So that adds 28 keyframes, and then 30 frames later I'm going to select this and open it like this, select this and open it like this, select this, open it like that, and select this, open it like that. Now just doing this is not going to help, because you have to actually add those keyframes. So again, select all of those bones and hit I to add 28 more keyframes. Now the problem is all of these are happening in the reverse direction. Over here, when you have quaternion, no gimbal lock, that's when your rotation behaves weirdly. So I'm learning things while I'm documenting stuff here. Again, for this we have a keyframe. So now that we've changed it to XYZ Euler, instead of, let me change to XYZ Euler first. Come in here and we say RZ, bring it here, that will drop a keyframe. Oh, we have both the keyframes selected, which is not what we want. Yep. So you see that it is this XYZ Euler thing which is important. Again here it is at quaternion, there's no gimbal lock, so you want to have a gimbal lock, so make it XYZ Euler. You come in here and RZ and bring it here. Why isn't that dropping a keyframe? Because again both are selected. So now I take it out. Yeah. So now the box opens like I wanted to. So there's one important thing that I've learned here is you want to have your, for every single element you want to have your rotation at XYZ Euler, or when any one of these are not on quaternion, because that tooltip there says no gimbal lock. Because of that, things are rotating in the wrong, orienting themselves in the wrong way. Again, we're doing discrete keyframes at the moment. If you want to do an overlap, we can do that later. And I think I would also have to take it up a bit. So currently I think it's at local, move to global, move it up Z and X, and that will automatically put a keyframe there. So you see the animation now, the box goes from here to here, the box opens, and then this happens. A bunch of coins fall out from the box. That's what the concept is that we're trying to go for. So how do we do that? We use a simple particle system for it. Now for the particle system to work, the first thing we need is of course an emitter. How do you get an emitter? I'm going to select the box and go into the edit mode and select, if Blender would allow me to, select this face here, which I think is the emitter object from earlier. Okay, let me delete that. Now we're going to come into the edit mode. And this doesn't seem to join. If I press F, I do something like this. I'm going to say A, M, merge by distance, so that it removes those extra vertices. Now with this, I'm going to say Shift D, right click to leave in place and say P selection. So that's a different object now. And that object, that's box 001, I'm going to rename it to emitter. And the advantage of having done this is now everything will work flawlessly because it is parented to the whole system. So now over here at like say 80 frames, I want to have those coins fall in. What I can do is I can select these and say H to hide it, so it's there but it's not obstructing me the way it is obstructing right now. So with this emitter selected, I'm going to come into my particle system and give it a particle system, and let's just leave it at default at the moment. The only thing I'm going to change is that the falling part has to start from 80. So frame start will be 80 and frame end will be 1000, and I want the lifetime to also be 1000 because we don't want them to end like midway. So the falling starts from here. Actually we'll see a lot of problems here. First problem is that it's not exactly falling out of the box, and that is because this box is not a collision. You have to define it as a collision. So you come into your physics properties and call it collision. Okay, so now if you go back to 80, you will see that when the boxes fall out, there is some collision happening. But again, one thing you see is that it is falling out from this part as well. So one easy way to fix that would be to select your emitter, and in your local view, we're going to bring it a little inside in the Z. So again, okay, switch off your auto keying and keep adding keyframes otherwise. So from here, yeah, now this does solve the problem of it flowing from the outside. So it just a little randomly falls from here. And because we've made that collision, it also affects that way. Another thing is that it's actually going through here, so that an easy fix for that would be you can come into the box and add a solidify modifier to it, and we can give it a little bit of thickness. So I like to keep the offset as 0 and then increase the thickness to a little bit. Now if you go back to 80, now you won't quite see things seeping in. It's all more like, okay, we still have that seeping in happening here. So the way you fix that is with the object selected, you want to come into, or maybe we take solidify above collision. Oh yeah, that fixes it. They are just going away like into oblivion. So when I select the floor here and give it a collision, and Alt H to bring our walls here, select these and give them collision. Now when we go back to 80 frames, and these balls falling. Now the thing is they're gonna just stick here, and that's because I have already played with the collision of this floor earlier, but that won't be by default. So you see stickiness is at 4.5, which makes it completely stick. If the stickiness was at 0, now we go back to 80 and play this, you'll see the balls will just keep bouncing, right? If the bouncing ball kind of effect is something that you want. So it's all about playing with the values here. If you make the friction completely 0, I think they're gonna bounce even more, like all the way, all over the place. And there's one kind of box which is weirdly stuck over here. It's like stuck in an infinite loop of sorts. Emitter, and make it a little smaller in Z. SZ, make it a little smaller in Z, so that it has that little space to go into particle system properties. Velocity, I'm going to give it a bit of a velocity. I think that will also solve the problem of things getting stuck in the box. So normal velocity is like it'll throw it out with a little bit of initial velocity, and this is bouncing from here a lot, and that's because we have those hidden walls here currently not visible. Now the thing that you want to play with is rotation and everything, but more importantly you want to come into render. Currently is rendering it as halo, and select it to object. And this is one thing that I had, it's just I don't even like to call this modeling because it's just a cylinder, and I have shrinked it down and give it like auto smooth. And in shading I have given it the brand, this is kind of their coin structure, so I've just UV unwrapped it. You come into edit mode, U, project from view, that will give you like a cylindrical UV unwrap, and then here you just add your image and scale it up to fit in it. We're gonna come in here and object, instance object, we're gonna pick this flash coin. Now what is more important to do here is, once you've done that, is you want to untick object scale, and this is something I talked about in the previous video as well. If object scale is ticked, things will behave weirdly, so you want to just adjust the scale from here of your instances. So right now the scale is pretty small, like 0.05. That's not the size of like normal coins. If I go to rendered view, here increase the size of the coins over here itself. Okay, and we also, I think, want to play with this thing here called size deflect. Okay, this will enable them to, like, it's a little too big at the moment. Now one more thing is that the coins won't like necessarily fall in this way, they should be rotated a certain way. So inside rotation you can randomize it completely, and for the phase I'm going to take the phase 1, so that should give us what we're looking for. Orientation axis, you can play with this, I think, global Z. One final thing that I want to document is how you can have like a wiggle kind of motion inside of Blender. So the thing that I want to try and do is, here I've added like a little bit of motion for the box, so the coins spill like a little bit more and they're actually moving out from the top face, which is something that we have to fix. So you see these movements here, the box moving left and right, is something that I've manually keyframed. But what if I want to have like an explosion kind of effect, like the box is moving and then jittering and then it like explodes? So that one easy way to do that is you select the box. Okay, inside your timeline you want to just come into like one of these, right? You don't want to have a lot of keyframes, so just select one of these, as a right click, insert single keyframe, so only that gets inserted. Now once that is done, you say Control Tab to convert your timeline into a graph editor, and you need the graph editor for this particular thing. I'm going to press home, so you come right into the point where things are. Now simply you want to come into the add modifier section here, add modifier, and we're going to say noise. So that's it, you just put that, and now you get like a little bit of jittery movement in the X direction. It's kind of like how you use wiggle inside After Effects. And you can play with a lot of settings here. Firstly, you can play with the scale, so this will make the movements a little smaller instead of like this. I also want to play with the strength because I don't want it to move so much, because if you see the moving the box by itself, because it has an armature, is doing some weird things. So I think the scale can be a little smaller. Yeah, so it's just like jittering, and then when the explosion happens, that's when I want the jittering to stop. So one amazing feature inside Blender is this thing here called restrict frame, and let me just put myself a little to this side so it's a little easy to see. So this restrict frame option is so crazy. You select this and you can restrict from where to where you want the jittering to happen. So I want the jittering to stop at around 60, so I'm going to put the end to 60 frames and then start at 0. Another amazing feature of Blender is this blend in thing. let's say I start at 0 only, but I want to start slowly, so I can take the blend in up, so it will like accordingly take that up like that, and so it slowly starts to jitter, and then it comes up and boom, things fall down. That was a little bit that I've learned yesterday. I'm going to keep working on this project and come up with more progress to document in tomorrow's video. Thanks so much for being in the khud. I'll catch you tomorrow. Peace.